Alright, let's talk about it. So Solo Leveling Season 2 has finally concluded, and I'm going to be doing like sort of a quick review on the show because I thought that this was actually an excellent season of TV. Season 1 was good because it introduced us to the world of gates in basically South Korea, where did it take place in South Korea? Yeah, technically it did. So we have our main character, Sun Jinwoo, who has been awarded as an E rank hunter. And hunters are basically people who go into gates that appear randomly around the world, not to be confused with the anime gate, which has a fairly similar concept to it. But basically, gates appear, those gates lead to dungeons, and the monsters in those dungeons pose a threat to the people who live in the world. And so Sung Jinwoo is an E rank hunter who has to go in and do that sort of dirty work. And of course the classes for hunters are E being the lowest and S being the highest. The big issue with ranks, however, is that when you are given a rank, you can never rank up higher. So basically that seemed like an interesting idea. It was a cool concept, but it was also an introduction to the world and basically how all of these machinations worked. And after almost being left for dead, he somehow gains the ability to actually level up. And so as he slowly levels up, he becomes stronger and stronger and then takes on larger and bigger threats, leaving us in an interesting spot at the end of season 1. Now season 2, he has accomplished a lot. He has been through a lot, and the world has changed quite substantially through this season. And I know that the manhwa is way ahead, but I'm also thinking to myself, it doesn't feel like the anime is going too fast. It feels like it's being paced kind of accordingly, despite the fact that I've actually never watched read the source material, I should say. I never read the manhwa, but the show seems perfectly paced. There are fights in adequate places. The story is going through at a decent pace while not making it seem like it's too slow or too fast, because if you go too fast with the storytelling, you feel like you're missing out on details, but if you go too slow, it feels like you're constantly being nagged by the show, the same things over and over again. And there are a lot of things you can look at, both in terms of how the monsters act, how Jinwoo is able to like level up, what does it mean to be a player, like all of these things that make him stand out from the world, makes it clear that there is something else going on here. And while some of that stuff isn't really touched upon in the season, it does bring up some level of intrigue, and I think that that is a great thing to have in this show. Now, because this is the second season, I've only kind of given you sort of like the Cliff Notes version of what to expect with the story as a whole. The thing is that I'm not actually going to go into too much detail about some of the stuff that goes on or what happens. So me saying something like, oh, a lot of stuff happens, is less of me not trying to spoil something and more a case of how having things happen, but also being able to do it at an adequate pace to where you're not leaving people behind, but you're not steamrolling, like, while not being too slow with storytelling, is really well put together. The animation is great. I think that the opening theme and the ending theme could probably have been a bit better. Not the greatest themes in the world and not particularly memorable. In fact, I actually don't personally remember the opening or ending theme, but it's also probably fair to say that I must have skipped through it for basically every episode, but I digress. Yeah, so I really do hope that we get another season, because I think one thing Solo Leveling Season 2 did exceptionally well is the fact that at the end of every episode, I wanted to see more. I wanted to watch more of the show, because when you don't want to watch more, what that tells you is I'm either not interested or I think I've had enough and I'm just going to stop and move away and do something else. If a show leaves you at a point where you want to see more, you want to watch more, you wish there were more episodes. That is where leaving events at the end of episodes on a cliffhanger do an exceptional job, because you've been lured in with the hook and now the fisherman is slowly reeling in the pole. That is what is happening. And like I said, I think that this is a great show. I think it's done a lot of great things. Like I said, the story is great, the art and animation is great, the characters are great. Granted, they mostly focus on Jinwoo most of the time. There are still some cool characters that were completely missing in season 1, and now with season 2 we now have a larger supporting cast roster, and I think that everyone has a little something to bring. I do find it difficult to find any particular character that's hateable, because whenever there might be a character that could potentially fall in that category, they immediately get humbled by Jinwoo basically. So I feel like there's a lot of good stuff here in terms of how you can write a story really well, how you can write characters really well and not have them fall in a very specific manner, even though it's very easy for them to be that way. For example, with overpowered characters, I feel like this could have become an extremely boring show if Jinwoo was too overpowered. You could argue that he kind of is, but it's the presentation style, it's the pacing, it's a little bit of everything that really helps. Whereas with something like, say for example, One Punch Man, it is used as a comedic crutch. It is used as a basis for the comedy of the show, whereas Solo Leveling isn't actually really much of a comedy in the end, but the thing is that it's pacing itself accordingly enough, and I think that's probably the most important thing. One thing that the show does so exceptionally well, and I've repeated it over and over again, is its damn good pacing. The pacing is bloody excellent. So with all that being said, I have a lot of positive things to say. Negatives: while we did get a supporting cast, I wish we had gotten more of them. There is a lot of things that the show is alluding to, but I feel like you can allow us as the viewer to interpret a lot of different little bits and pieces of imagery as much as you would like us to. But the thing is that sometimes you do need to kind of start answering some of those questions, but maybe I'm going a little bit too hard on the imagery that's going on as well. Plus, the opening and ending theme are just not quite to the quality of, like I said, the voice acting. The voice acting I didn't even talk about. The voice acting is great as well. So everything else is always such a higher level that the opening and ending themes do feel like they're kind of suffering a little bit, and in fact are a little bit wanted at times as well. So all in all, I had a great time. I think that this show is great, and while there are some aspects that could be done a little bit better, like I said, the ending and opening theme, the going a little, like, rather than just alluding to things, also maybe just starting to bring those story threads into play. And the final episode did seem just weak compared to all the other episodes. But unfortunately, it's a case of you do need to tie up the bow eventually. So hopefully we do get a season 3 and things do move forward a little bit more. But with all that being said, Solo Leveling for me, on my anime list, I'm actually going to put this at an 8 out of 10 on it, because I think that this is a great show. I think this is a great time. It is a really, really good show, but there are other shows that I feel like, you know, do generally tend to do things a little bit better, and Solo Leveling Season 2 isn't anything that I have seen new and unique yet. So unless something is a little bit more newer, something a little bit more unique that does things a lot differently, we're going to have to wait and see what that kind of looks like. But I really do hope that, you know, things only get better moving forward. But with all that being said, let me know what you guys think about all of this in the comments below. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe to the channel. I'm aiming for 500 subs by the end of the year. And with all that being said, I do upload every day, so I'll see you guys tomorrow.